This is Charity Godfrey here with
Danesha with Lifescape.
Hey guys! You know, Danesha and I talk often about my specialization that I do at Lifescape, which is inner child work, and I thought we could have a discussion, and maybe for anybody who's maybe heard that term randomly but has never had any experience with that, maybe you could learn a little bit more today that could actually help you. So we thought we could do this video and just really kind of talk about what that looks like. So, sound good?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay, all right. So Dr. Susan Anderson is a wonderful psychoanalyst and has written a couple of books, and those are the books that I really follow for a lot of the work that I do here at Lifescape with my clients. My population is adults, and primarily maybe 22 to all the way up to 72 is my client population. So really the inner child work has to do with reparenting some of the parts of yourself as a child that maybe didn't get the attention that it needed, or some of those safety pieces weren't met. So it just depends, on the person's lived experiences that we discuss in session. So it's a really interesting process that we go through, and I use the book quite often. There's a couple of books like Dr. Susan Anderson uses, and we go through them. I have my clients read their passages and discuss them in session, and there's really like a format that is followed. So just depending on the process and the lived experiences of the person that comes in and sees me. So it's kind of where I begin.
Yeah. How did you get into inner child work?
Oh, it's such a good question. So I've had a bunch of supervisors since I've been in school for 12 years straight and now finishing up my doctorate.
Yay!
Yay! But I've had some really great supervisors, and I had one when I was working at Lifescape Cares introduce me to this type of work. And she asked me, had I ever heard of it before? And it's not the type of specialization that's discussed in a master's program, mental health program. So I had to do a lot of my own study, a lot of my own education, consultation with other inner child experts nationwide, to be honest with you.
There's not that many.
No, there's really not that many. You know, I used to think there weren't a lot of books about inner child, but what I found is there's a lot of books with people that have healed through inner child work. So they write these books, and they're just as valuable. I think when I look at these books and I read excerpts through them, it just reinforces how incredible the journey of healing your past can really catapult your future. So when I work with people, I always suggest to them, go look at some other books that are online. We don't have to stay in the parameter of just Dr. Susan Anderson. So that's how I learned it, through a supervisor who introduced it to me, and then I did my own work and really found another therapist that I could really adopt the way that they were approaching the modality.
Yeah. Speaking of doing your own work, to me, that's what I hear when you say parent the inner child. What would parenting your inner child look like? What is an example of just doing that own work for yourself?
We could probably be here a couple days talking about that. So I'll try to shorten it a little bit. You know, when I first work with people, it's really important to validate all their lived experiences. And many of those experiences are traumatic, or they could be complex trauma where situations happen over and over, or a simple trauma. But as you and I both know, there's never such thing as a simple trauma.
Right, exactly.
That just means a once occurrence. So what I basically have them do is, the first step is really write out a timeline. So they can actually step back, but then step into those shoes again, where they can chronologically, through age and then placement of their experiences that they feel have really impacted their lives, where they can start to connect those two.
See, that's the thing.
Yes.
Because what if I'm doing my timeline and I see some things that I just don't want to step back into? And I think that is a conversation of just like allowing yourself to be in that space where your inner child was. Because I think that's the only place that you can heal from.
It's so true.
Yeah.
So permission is always given, right? Because it's an honor to be in somebody's space, and particularly when they're sharing such traumatic experiences. So that's not done in one day, that's not done in a week. inner child work is done over a year, 2 years, 3 years, depending on the length of trauma, really. So permission is always asked each time, and a lot of times when they're doing the timelines, depending upon the kind of work they've done before, right? So they have done some other work with another counselor, so they're at a different part in their life where they have gone back and examined some of that stuff, but it's still there. So then they come to me to get that root system out and remanage, reshape, and heal that stuff. So their identity, their true identity, can emerge. So if I give an assignment and they come in and I can see some big chunks missing, like maybe 5 to 12, and I say to them, you know, what happened between here? I see that, you know, at 4 you wrote you moved or parents divorced, and then all of a sudden we're in high school. What happened between here? Most times I'm happy and blessed and honored to sit down and actually do that work with them in my safe office, because that stuff can be re-traumatizing as well. So we've got to be, the client and I, we've got to be really cautious of those experiences too.
I think what you just mentioned about re-traumatizing, doing that layout, it also allows the client to see the part of their childhood that has been blocked out because of trauma. Sometimes we don't even recognize that an intricate part of my life I no longer have in my conscious thoughts because I've suppressed those things or that time period. And so just like you said, giving permission to go back to that place also changes the concept that I can just heal from today's date. And allowing them to be in a space where I can go back, I can look at those belief systems, I can look at those connection pieces from my childhood, so that I can see how did that impact the person that I am today.
So those are really good points you bring up, and you create a really great picture by the words that you've used. So there's those 3 stages that we walk through together, right? The client and I. And when we do that timeline and I'm asking them to go back, we're looking to heal what the inner child, that's the title, what the inner child did not receive. So whether that was any kind of traumatic impact, we know poverty is a traumatic impact. We know divorce. We know a child that moves from home to home or doesn't have stable caregiving. So when we look at those pieces, we're looking first at what did the inner child, what didn't she or he or they not get?
I can imagine through that may also be like some self-realization for your clients to even realize, oh, okay, I did get this, or this was a missing piece of something that I feel a disconnect with today.
So then a lot of those pieces that come up, or sometimes they feel empowered that they can identify. And then sometimes, depending upon whether they've done work before myself or not, whether it's through church or their own or a counselor, it can bring up a lot of sadness, a lot of frustration. So it is really important, though, during that period when clients are making some of those realizations about realizing I have been through trauma and that the trauma is really affecting my life now as an adult, it's important that I tell them that yes, we're doing this work right now on these past parts of your life, and I'm going to help you process it. And I'm going to help you heal this piece so we can move on to where you're at right now. Because that's the number one fear. Do I have to keep going back to my childhood? Why do I have to keep going back to my childhood? And those are all really valid questions. And until we do the correct work for that person, that's really the answer of how can we move forward. What's going to be next for that person.
So as they are walking through some of those maybe difficult memories or times from their past, what would be a coping skill or a tool that you would tell them to just allow their inner child to do as they are healing?
That's such a good question. There's so many different type of coping skills that I ask them to do. It is really dependent upon 2 separate concepts. Red zone feelings and blue zone feelings. Right? So blue zone feelings are all of the withdrawal, right? So maybe they started inner child work and they're feeling like they can't get out of bed, or they're feeling depressive symptoms, or they're withdrawing, they're getting late to work now. or they could be doing the red zone, right? The adrenaline. I can't stop working out now. I'm overeating. I find myself yelling.
Okay.
I'm getting very irritated. So we talk about through those first couple of weeks when we're exploring that trauma, how are you, when you're not in my office, coping? What are some of the emotions that are really predominantly in your space?
Yeah.
So I teach them about red zone, blue zone experiences, and then swapping the opposite for the coping.
Makes
So
sense.
so if somebody is living in a state of irritation and just feeling angry all the time, I would say to them, well, we need blue calming coping skills. So because there's not a format for everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody has a unique lived experience that will need a unique plan for them to be able to process and cope
Yes.
till we get to the healing part.
Yeah.
Because there has to be an implication of hope through that process. Yeah. So that's the beginning stage, is that inner child piece. Let's get in touch with the inner child, meaning those experiences we had as a child that interrupted some of the later parts of our life now. So we need to go back and heal those pieces.
Yeah.
So that's the first part of what we're kind of talking about today, is the inner child. And I really appreciate Danesha helping me out today to discuss this a little further. There's 2 more parts, so stay tuned to that, because when the inner child doesn't get what she or he or they needs, we form maladaptive behaviors called the outer child. And although that's done in the very beginning as a protective measure, it can't sustain in that state. So it turns into other things that it can be very destructive. So stay tuned, we're going to talk about that. And the third is the adult self rising, the adult self becoming, the adult self healing, and what that feels like, what that looks like, and how hopeful that can be for people to really just process and really be able to leave it behind. Because it was never yours to carry in the first place.
Oh.
And I want people to know that. It's important. We were never meant to carry that with us. So stay tuned. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch Danesha and I, our video, and sharing our information with you, and our passion for helping people to heal. Take care.
Thank you.